I want to talk about the Jews' experience with democracy, the American version of democracy. Um, in 1776, July 4th, it was the Declaration of Independence, I believe, and the colonists decided we're no longer going to be under the king, and we're going to unify these colonies, these 13 colonies, and from there was born the American version of democracy, of governance of the people, by the people, and for the people. And it's evolved in very strange ways throughout history, and it is where we are today. Different people feeling different levels of involvement and different levels of utility from this system. But 1773 was actually 3 years before 1776 was the birth of the Mittler Rebbe, the second Lubavitcher Rebbe. It says God doesn't provide a disease without an antidote. The first Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe, when Napoleon was waging war and trying to take over his part of the world in his own little warped version of Messiah complex, they asked the Alter Rebbe, within the Orthodox Jewish framework, there was a split, there was a dichotomy as to should we pray for him, should we not pray for him. The Alter Rebbe was very clear on his answer, and he said like this: while physically for the Jew things will get better if the Jews are emancipated as Napoleon wants, and taken out of these ghettos, and not seen as second-class citizens, and enlightened as they were they were deemed at the time to be under the Napoleonic rule, having access to all kinds of literature and the like. Things will be better physically for the Jew, but spiritually they'll be very isolated from their Father in heaven. And then at the end the story goes, he says, and dear God, please burn this letter. Meaning the Alter Rebbe knew at the time what he was saying. He was saying like this: I could pray that physically things will be better for the Jews, but at what expense? If they're emancipated like Napoleon wants, if they're seen as regular citizens, they're going to forget who they are as a people. They're going to forget the Talmud, they're going to forget the Torah, they're going to forget their mission in life, their spiritual journey, their spiritual quest, and they're going to, God forbid, begin to assimilate and become almost unrecognizable from their non-Jewish brothers. And this is something the Alter Rebbe was clearly against. So fast forward now, this was actually in the Napoleonic Wars, it was at the same time. So fast forward now to America. What would the Alter Rebbe say of democracy? Democracy, to me, in my opinion, it's the same exact thing the Alter Rebbe was yelling and screaming against. And it's seen as such a gift from above, such a gift to the Jew. You know, democracy, we were granted a vote just like the non-Jew. We could take a part in the government just like the non-Jew. We can do anything we want just like the non-Jew. It's like such a wonderful, wondrous experience, an experiment. But you have to look spiritually. What happened to the Jew? And this day and age, people are still somewhat embarrassed to admit they're Jewish. They don't dress like differently from non-Jews. They're not, it's hard to tell a Jew from a non-Jew. The names have become assimilated. I mean, their customs are assimilated. Many Jews celebrate non-Jewish holidays. We've fallen so far from our Father's table in heaven that this concept, you know, they tried to bury the Reconstructionists and the Reform, the Conservatives tried to bury this chosen people concept under a rug to the point where you think it's some kind of fable, some kind of thing that some elitist Jews made up, not recognizing ultimately it comes from the Bible itself and from God Himself and His revelation at Sinai to the Jews to be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation to Him. So what is the solution? What is the cure? So in 1773, the Mittler Rebbe was born, and with the birth of the Mittler Rebbe, 3 years before the Declaration of Independence was signed, and you have to use your revisionist history because basically you can say by the seventh generation, the sixth/seventh generation, the Hasidic camp of Lubavitch anyway, and also Satmar, this was a result of what was happening in Nazi Germany, war-torn Europe in general, that Jews felt they had to flee their homeland or else they would just become like sheep led to the slaughter, unfortunately. So they moved over to America, and Lubavitch, especially with its strong belief in outreach and disseminating Hasidic doctrine and Torah in general, and bringing the Jew closer to Judaism, as was under the guise of the seventh generation, the leader of the seventh generation, began to restate the value of a Jew and to make a Jew feel okay with his Judaism. And this was the beauty of the rebuilding of Judaism, in my opinion. At least one of the three main leaders, no matter how you cut it. There's Rav Feinstein, of course, there's Rav Soloveitchik, and there's the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and also the Satmar Rebbe too, who had I think the most Hasidim out of any other Rebbe that there was. But basically, these four gentlemen, they took Jews after what happened to us in the Holocaust, and they made it okay to be Jewish again, and they made it something to be proud of, and something not to be scared of, not something to be embarrassed of. And the Rebbe's approach to it was distinct because what he said was, don't focus on what happened, focus on what can happen, what's going to happen in the future. And he was very big on talking of the Messianic redemption. This was 18, 19 years ago. By the first Gulf War, he was saying these are things coming straight out of prophecy. These are things that if you open your eyes, you'll see that the Messianic Redeemer is here amongst us and is with us, waiting to redeem us. And he was basically telling the world, now that your technology is increasing and now that everything is developing, and he had many things. There's one sikha, it's famous on Gem Video, you can see it. It's like in the 70s, everybody's yelling and screaming not to be dependent on foreign oil. And we have such things with these videos. You really see true prophecy, and you see it. You can't deny it because you can't dispute it because it's on a video. So the Rebbe's message to the world is: don't think the Jews are going to go away. Don't think that there's going to be a falling out of Judaism, and don't think that Orthodox Judaism is going to fall to the wayside. This is something the previous Rebbe had this experience when he first came to these shores. He said, "America is no different." That was his famous quote. So even his adherents said to him, "Rebbe, please, for your health." He was already older, and he was about 60, I think. He was around 1880. He came officially in 1940. But I said, "For your health, Rebbe, please, do not think that this is Eastern Europe. This isn't Lubavitch. You've left Russia now. You're in America." And he saw the Jews didn't have beards. The kosher wasn't what it could be. The mikvahs weren't exactly everywhere that like he would like to see them. They told him, Rebbe, they took him into his hotel room, I think it was like the plaza, and they said, "This isn't for your health. Please, just cease and desist. I know who you are. I know what your mission is in life. I know that Rashab was. I know your father was. Do not do this to yourself. This is America. America is different." And he said, "No, America is not different." And luckily, by the leadership of his son-in-law, both his sons-in-laws that survived the Holocaust, Horowitz didn't make it, unfortunately. Hashem should avenge their blood. But they were able to continue this message, and to the point where now it's hard not to feel the international presence of their movement as an outreach movement, as a movement that's geared towards making Jews feel okay with their Judaism. And this is how you combat the Alter Rebbe's gripe against emancipation, against Napoleon winning out, against democracy, and having the Jew involved in the secular world. The Mittler Rebbe, the birth of Mittler Rebbe, and his Chassidus, if you look at what he wrote down, and also the Tzemach Tzedek, and through all generations afterwards, and also Torah Nigla, Torah has become disseminated to the point where it's like, we never would have dreamed we had so many Torah books like we do in this generation. And a lot of it is available online. If you search enough, you can find free books online and free insights online. It's such a beautiful thing. The Jew, if he really positively focuses himself and gears himself towards the good and pure things in life, he doesn't have to worry that he's going to become lost in emancipation, and he's going to become lost in democracy and his freedom and his journey of freedom. It says that we were redeemed from Egypt, from slavery, from bondage, from a king of flesh and blood. But we weren't redeemed from slavery to God. The Jew is ultimately a slave to God, and he has no choice in this mission, he has no choice in this calling. And as much as you think that America is different, and now you're free to forget about God, it's simply not the case, because God made an eternal pact with the world, an eternal covenant with the world, and it's all dependent on the Jew's service to God. So I would encourage feedback on this via personal message. What do you think the experience of democracy has been for the Jew? How you found it a good one, a bad one? And please consider that I think it's anywhere from 7 to 10% of the Jews are now Orthodox. And how scary this is, and how mind-boggling it is when you think what a beautiful life it is, what an enriching life it is, what a powerful life it is, what a passionate life it is. And you think the alternatives of sitting and watching the football or whatever it is